The night was cold, and the city lights flickered like small stars trying to fight the darkness. People walked fast on the busy road, their jackets pulled close, their faces hidden in scarves. Among them sat a man named Ravi, on an old wooden bench near the corner of the street. His clothes were plain, worn with time, and his shoes had holes. Beside him was a small cloth bag that carried all he owned in the world. Ravi was not always like this. Once, he had dreams, a small family, and a shop where he worked with his hands. But life had changed quickly, leaving him with nothing but memories and the hard ground under his feet. Still, he carried himself with quiet dignity. He never begged loudly. He never forced his sadness on others. Instead, he sat, watched, and listened to the world that often forgot he was there. That evening, as cars rushed past and horns filled the air, a sleek black car stopped across the road. It was the kind of car that turned heads, shiny, expensive, and rare. People slowed down for a moment to look, then walked on, busy with their own troubles. The car door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He wore a dark suit that seemed to belong in a glass office, not on a dusty street. His shoes were polished, his watch shining under the light, but his face told another story. The man's name was Arjun. He was known in the city as one of the richest businessmen, the kind of person newspapers wrote about, the kind of man who always appeared smiling at grand events. But tonight, there was no smile. His shoulders bent low, his hands trembled slightly, and his eyes were wet with tears he tried to hide. He walked slowly toward the pavement, sat down near the edge, and pressed his face into his hands. Ravi noticed him. At first, he thought it strange what reason could such a man have to sit on the ground and cry. People with money usually had walls of pride around them. Yet here was a man dressed in wealth, looking as lost as a child. For a long moment, Ravi stayed silent, only watching. He had learned not to interfere with strangers. But something about Arjun's quiet sobs touched him. They were not the loud cries of anger. They were soft, almost broken, the kind that came when someone had carried pain for too long and could no longer hold it inside. Ravi whispered to himself, "Even the richest cry." He thought of walking away. After all, what could a homeless man offer a billionaire? But his heart did not let him. He stood slowly, picked up his bag, and crossed the street. Arjun did not notice him at first. His mind was far away, drowning in worries. When Ravi came closer, he looked up with surprise. His eyes were red, his face tired. "Are you all right, sir?" Ravi asked softly. His voice was calm, almost gentle, the way one speaks to someone in pain. Arjun blinked. No one had asked him that in a long time. People usually asked him for favors, for money, for deals, but not for his well-being. He gave a bitter smile. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered. Ravi thought for a moment. He did not take offense. Instead, he sat a little distance away on the pavement. "Maybe not," he replied, "but I can listen." The words were simple, but they hung heavy in the air. For a man like Arjun, who spent his days surrounded by people but never truly heard, this offer felt different. He studied Ravi, his torn clothes, his tired face, his kind eyes. Why would someone with nothing stop to listen to him, a man with everything? The traffic roared around them, but in that small corner, the world seemed to pause. Two men sat side by side, one with wealth beyond measure, the other with nothing but a bag. Yet at that moment, they looked strangely alike, both carrying invisible burdens. Arjun did not speak further, not yet. But he didn't stand up and leave either. That was enough for Ravi to know his presence mattered. He leaned back, looking at the night sky. "Funny world," he said softly. "Some people run after coins, some after crowns, but everyone ends up carrying their own weight." Arjun glanced at him. His lips parted as if to answer, but he stopped. He simply let the words sink in. For the first time in many months, Arjun felt that maybe, just maybe, someone could see past his title, his money, and his fame. Someone who expected nothing, asked for nothing, only offered a silent seat beside him. That night, under the dim streetlight, a strange connection was born. A homeless man and a billionaire had crossed paths, not through business, not through power, but through a quiet tear and a gentle voice. And though neither of them knew it yet, this meeting was only the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. The night moved slowly, and the street around them grew quieter. The shops began closing, and the sound of footsteps faded. Only a few street vendors packed their carts, and the smell of roasted corn still hung faintly in the air. Ravi sat on the pavement beside Arjun, not speaking much, only waiting. He had learned in his hard life that sometimes silence was stronger than 1,000 words. Arjun finally took a deep breath, his eyes still wet. His voice was low, almost as if he was speaking to himself. I have money. I have cars, houses, people who call me successful, but none of it means anything. I cannot fix what is broken inside. Ravi turned his head slowly. He didn't reply immediately. He understood that when someone spoke from the heart, they did not need quick answers, they needed space to let the pain flow out. Arjun leaned his elbows on his knees and continued, every day, people come to me for something. They smile because they want business, or they pretend to respect me because they want favors. But when the lights go off at night, when I sit alone in my huge house, there is no one. No one who sees me, no one who asks how I am. His words trembled. I built towers, but I lost my home. I signed deals, but I lost my family. And now, I don't know if I even know myself anymore. Ravi looked down at his hands, rough and cracked from years of living without comfort. Then he lifted his eyes to Arjun. Loneliness, he said softly. I know that feeling. Arjun gave a faint laugh, though there was no joy in it. How could you? You don't know what it's like to run a company, to carry the weight of thousands of workers, to live with pressure every day. Ravi nodded slowly. That is true. I have never lived in a mansion. I never signed a business paper. But loneliness is the same in every language, in every street, in every house, big or small. Empty rooms feel the same, whether they have golden walls or cracked bricks. Arjun turned to him with surprise. The simple man beside him spoke with a calm truth that pierced his heart. For a long while, he didn't argue. He simply listened, though he didn't admit it out loud. A cool wind passed by, carrying with it the faint sound of a child's laughter from a nearby alley. Ravi's eyes followed the sound. You know, he said, I sit here every day. Sometimes people throw me a coin, sometimes they don't. But what I miss most is not money, it is being seen. Most people walk past as if I am invisible. It hurts more than hunger. Arjun closed his eyes. For the first time, he felt his own pain reflected in another. He, too, had been surrounded by crowds yet invisible in truth. Finally, his voice broke. I am tired. I am tired of pretending. Everyone thinks I am strong, that I am unshakable. But inside, I feel weak. I want to cry, but I cannot in front of them. I want help, but I cannot ask. What kind of man am I if I cannot even fix my own life? Ravi did not smile, but his voice was steady and kind. You are human, he said. That is all. A man is not a stone. Even the strongest hearts break when they carry too much weight. Arjun wiped his face with the back of his hand. His expensive watch caught the streetlight, but at that moment it looked meaningless. His wealth could not buy him the comfort of these few simple words. Ravi leaned back against the wall. You said money can't fix everything. You are right. Money can build walls, but it cannot build trust. It can buy a bed, but not sleep. It can fill a plate, but not an empty soul. Arjun stared at him. For years, people around him had been experts in numbers, contracts, and profits. But this man, with torn shoes and no home, spoke with a wisdom that no book had taught him. Then what fixes it? Arjun asked quietly, almost pleading. Ravi looked at him with calm eyes. Sometimes, nothing can be fixed. Not the way we think. Life is not always about fixing, sometimes it is about learning to carry, learning to see differently. And sometimes, it is about finding one person who will listen, so the burden feels lighter. The words struck Arjun's heart. He realized that for years he had searched for solutions, for quick answers, for something he could buy to erase his emptiness. But here was a man who had nothing, yet carried his suffering with a strange strength. For the first time that night, Arjun didn't feel completely alone. The city grew darker, and most people disappeared into their homes. Still, the two men sat together on the pavement, one with a broken soul, one with broken shoes. They did not solve anything that night, but something important had begun. A wall had cracked, and a small bridge had formed. Arjun looked at Ravi and whispered, "Thank you." It was not a thank you for money or favors, but for something deeper. Ravi only nodded. Sometimes, sir, listening is enough. And in that quiet street, under the fading light, a billionaire's cry for help had finally been heard by the most unlikely listener. The night stretched long, yet neither Arjun nor Ravi moved away. Cars grew fewer on the road, and the city lights seemed dimmer than before. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and the sound of a train whistle carried through the air. It was late, but neither man felt the urge to leave. Arjun kept his head bowed. He had spoken more openly to Ravi, a stranger, than he had to anyone else in years. Still, his heart felt heavy, as if thousands of unanswered questions pressed down on him. Ravi, however, did not ask for more words. He simply sat, his presence steady like a stone beside flowing water. Silence filled the space between them, but it was not an empty silence. It was the kind that speaks without sound, that gives comfort without effort. Arjun, who was used to people filling every moment with chatter, found himself strangely at peace in this quiet company. Finally, Arjun lifted his face slightly. His voice was low. "You are a stranger. You don't know me, you don't know my life. Why do you care to sit here? Why don't you leave?" Ravi looked ahead at the street, where a lone cycle rickshaw passed by. He spoke gently. "Because sometimes, a man does not need answers. He only needs someone not to walk away." The words surprised Arjun. He thought of all the times people in his world had left, friends who vanished when they could not benefit from him, family who drifted away when his work consumed him, workers who obeyed him but never truly cared. And here sat a man who had no reason to stay, yet stayed. Ravi shifted slightly, pulling his thin shawl tighter around his shoulders. His hands were rough, marked by the life he had lived on the streets. Yet his eyes were calm. Arjun asked, almost in a whisper, "Don't you ever feel hopeless, sitting here every day with nothing?" Ravi smiled faintly, though it was not a smile of joy, it was a smile of someone who had learned to carry pain. "Of course, I feel hopeless. Many nights, I sleep hungry. Many mornings, I wake not knowing if I will find food. But I remind myself of one thing, even if I have lost much, I have not lost the chance to see the sun again. That is enough for me to rise each day." Arjun looked at him closely. The words were simple, yet they struck deep. He thought about his own morning's breakfast served on silver plates, staff waiting for instructions, schedules planned down to the minute. Yet with all that, he often woke with dread, unwilling to face another day of emptiness. "Today I sat in my office, surrounded by glass walls, looking at the city," Arjun confessed. "Everyone thinks I live at the top of the world. But I felt as if I was at the bottom. I wanted to scream, but no one would understand. That is why I stopped my car tonight. I thought maybe if I sat alone on the street, I could breathe again. Ravi nodded. He did not laugh at the thought of a billionaire searching for air on a pavement. Instead, he said, "Sometimes, sir, the higher the building, the stronger the wind. It is lonely at the top." Arjun's lips trembled at those words. He had never heard anyone put it so simply. For a long while, they both sat quietly again. Ravi leaned against the wall, and Arjun rested his arms on his knees. The silence grew softer, almost gentle. Neither man felt judged, neither felt small or big. They were simply two souls sharing the same night. A street light above them flickered, and Arjun lifted his eyes. The stars were faint, hidden by the city's glow, but he searched for them anyway. Ravi followed his gaze. "Do you see them?" Ravi asked. "See what?" Arjun replied. "The stars," Ravi said with a calm voice. "They are small, almost hidden by the city lights. But they are still there. Even if we cannot see them clearly, they exist. Life is like that sometimes. Hope is small, hidden by noise, but it is still there." Arjun stared at him, silent. Those words stirred something inside, something he had buried for years. He realized that this man, who had so little, carried within him a treasure of thoughts that no money could buy. The silence returned, but now it felt warmer. It was no longer the silence of loneliness, but the silence of understanding. Arjun whispered at last, "I feel lighter. I don't know why. I haven't solved anything, but still, lighter." Ravi gave a small nod. "Because you let the weight out. A jar that is too full must spill, or it will break." Arjun closed his eyes. He thought of the countless nights he had gone to bed with an aching chest, carrying words he could not say. Tonight, those words had spilled into the night air, and beside him sat someone who caught them without judgment. When Arjun opened his eyes again, Ravi was still there, quiet and calm. For the first time in many years, Arjun felt that maybe he was not completely alone. The clock tower nearby struck midnight, its sound echoing through the empty streets. Yet neither man stood up. The world outside rushed on, but in that little corner, time seemed to stop. It was a strange picture: a billionaire in a suit and a homeless man in torn clothes, sitting side by side, sharing silence. But perhaps it was in this strange picture that truth was hidden, that pain makes all men equal, and silence can sometimes heal more than words. And so, the night ended not with solutions, not with promises, but with a bond. A fragile thread of connection had been tied, and though it was invisible, it was strong. Neither man knew it then, but this thread would pull them together again and again, until both their lives were changed forever. The next evening, the city was alive with its usual noise. Street vendors called out to customers, children chased each other near the narrow lanes, and the hum of traffic filled the air. Yet, in the middle of all the busyness, Ravi sat in his usual place, calm and steady. He did not wait for anyone in particular, but in his heart, he wondered if the man from the night before Arjun would return. And indeed, after some time, a familiar black car stopped not far from the bench. The door opened, and Arjun stepped out. He looked less troubled than the night before, but his face still carried the marks of tiredness. When he saw Ravi, his lips curved into the faintest smile. "You are here again," Arjun said, walking toward him. "And you too," Ravi replied, his voice soft. "Seems the street has become our meeting place." They sat together, this time not as strangers, but as two men who had shared something unspoken. For a while, neither spoke, and that silence felt natural. Finally, Arjun broke it. "Do you always sit here?" he asked. "Yes," Ravi said, nodding slowly. "This corner is my home for now." It gives me a place to watch the world go by. People rushing, laughing, crying. Everyone is a story. Arjun thought about that. He had spent years watching numbers, profits, and buildings grow, but rarely had he stopped to notice the faces of strangers or the small stories happening around him. As the evening deepened, Ravi reached into his old cloth bag. He pulled out something worn and folded a small notebook with a frayed cover. The edges were bent, the pages yellowed with time. He held it in his hands for a moment, then looked at Arjun. "I want to show you something," Ravi said gently. Arjun raised his brows, curious. "What is it?" Ravi handed him the notebook. "This is my little treasure. It doesn't look like much, but it keeps me alive in ways food sometimes cannot." Arjun opened the book carefully. The pages were filled with uneven handwriting, some words written faintly, some bold. There were small sketches, 2 simple drawings of birds, a child's smile, a cup of tea. "What is this?" Arjun asked. "It is my gratitude book," Ravi explained. "Every day, no matter how bad it is, I write one thing I am thankful for. It could be as small as finding half a piece of bread, or hearing someone laugh. Sometimes I write about the sun, sometimes about a stranger's kindness. It reminds me that even in emptiness, life gives small gifts." Arjun turned the pages slowly. He read lines that touched his heart. "Today I found shade under a tree. Today someone shared water with me. Today I was not invisible." The simplicity of those words hit him harder than any speech or book he had ever read. Here was a man with nothing, yet he found reasons to be thankful. And Arjun, with everything, often felt he had nothing at all. He closed the book gently and handed it back. His voice was low. "You write these every day?" "Yes," Ravi replied. "It is my way of reminding myself that life still holds something good, even in the middle of pain. Without this, I might lose myself completely." Arjun looked down, his chest heavy with emotions he could not name. He thought of his mansion, filled with silence. He thought of his table, full of food he rarely tasted. He thought of his life, full of riches but empty of meaning. After a long pause, Arjun asked, "And it helps?" Ravi smiled softly. "It doesn't change the world around me. It doesn't put a roof over my head. But it changes me. It makes me see differently. Sometimes, that is enough." The words echoed inside Arjun. "It changes me." He realized how much he had tried to change everything outside his company, his house, his possessions, while ignoring the emptiness within. A vendor passed by, selling hot tea. Arjun called him over and bought 2 cups. They sat there, drinking slowly, the steam rising in the cool night air. As they sipped, Arjun whispered, almost to himself, "I live in a house with 100 rooms, but I do not feel at home. And you sit on a street corner, yet you have found a kind of peace. How is that possible?" Ravi chuckled lightly. "Peace doesn't come from walls, sir. It comes from how you carry your heart. A man can live in a palace and still be restless. Another can sleep under the stars and still smile." Arjun nodded, his mind full of thoughts. The notebook, simple and old, had touched him more deeply than any expensive gift he had ever received. When they finished their tea, Arjun said softly, "May I borrow your notebook for one night?" Ravi hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes. But promise me, you will return it. It is all I have." "I promise," Arjun replied sincerely. As Arjun held the little book in his hand, he felt as if he had been given something priceless, a new way of seeing life. It was not made of gold or jewels, but of words and small moments of gratitude. That night, as Arjun drove back to his mansion, the notebook rested beside him. For the first time in many years, he felt curious, almost hopeful. And back on the street corner, Ravi leaned against the bench, smiling faintly. He had given away the only treasure he owned, but in his heart, he felt lighter. Sometimes, the smallest gift can carry the greatest meaning. And this gift, simple as it was, would soon begin to change a billionaire's life in ways he had never imagined. The following day, Arjun sat in his grand living room, the small, worn notebook resting on his desk. Around him were shelves filled with leather-bound books, awards in shining frames, and paintings worth millions. Yet none of those things held his attention. His eyes stayed fixed on Ravi's notebook. He opened it again, turning the pages one by one. The handwriting was uneven, the ink sometimes faded, but the words carried a power stronger than gold. Today a stranger smiled at me. Today the rain cooled my skin. Today I shared my bread, and I was not hungry alone. Arjun read these lines over and over. Each word was like a mirror showing him his own emptiness. He had never written such simple thoughts. His diaries, when he kept them, were full of numbers, plans, and deals but never gratitude. He realized that though he had everything, he had never truly seen the small lights of life. That evening, he drove again to the street corner. Ravi was already there, sitting cross-legged on the ground, watching the crowd. When he saw Arjun, his face lit up with a small smile. "You came back," Ravi said. Arjun handed him the notebook with care, as if it were more precious than diamonds. "Yes. And I read every word. Your book, it taught me something I never understood before." Ravi took the notebook gently and tucked it back into his cloth bag. "And what did it teach you?" he asked. Arjun sat down beside him, his voice thoughtful. "That value is not always in big things. I have spent years chasing numbers, thinking the bigger the number, the greater the life. But you find value in the smallest things I never even noticed." Ravi nodded slowly. "Numbers can fill a bank, but not a heart. A coin is heavy in the pocket, but a smile is light in the soul." Arjun stared at him, humbled. "You have nothing, yet you seem richer than me in some ways." Ravi chuckled softly. "I wouldn't call myself rich. Hunger still hurts, cold still bites. But I have learned one truth: when you lose everything, you start seeing the value of little things you once ignored. The taste of clean water, the warmth of a stranger's kindness, these become treasures." Arjun leaned back, resting his arms on the bench. "In my world, people chase bigger houses, bigger cars, bigger deals. We call it success. But it never ends. No matter what I buy, there is always something bigger to want. It is like an endless race." Ravi looked at him kindly. "That is because people confuse price with value. A thing can have a high price but no real value. And something with no price at all, like love, kindness, or peace, can hold the greatest value." Arjun fell silent. The words sank deep into him. He thought of his empty house again, its walls filled with art but not laughter. He thought of his dinners, where the table was full of food but not conversation. For the first time, he truly saw the difference between price and value. A vendor came by selling roasted peanuts. Arjun quickly bought a packet, paying more than necessary. He offered it to Ravi. Ravi smiled. "Thank you." They ate together, sharing the simple food. Arjun realized that the taste felt richer than the expensive meals he often ate alone. It was not the peanuts, it was the company, the act of sharing. After a pause, Arjun asked, "Tell me, Ravi, what was your life before this? Before the streets?" Ravi's eyes softened with memory. "I had a small shop once. I sold tools and fixed broken things. People trusted me with their household items: fans, radios, bicycles. I lived with my wife and my little daughter in a small house. Life was not grand, but it was ours." Arjun listened with full attention, something he rarely gave anyone. "But one day," Ravi continued, "a fire spread through the market. My shop burned down. I tried to rebuild, but debts grew. My wife fell ill, and I could not pay for her treatment. She left this world. My daughter was taken by relatives to a far town. And slowly, I had nothing left but these streets. Arjun's chest tightened. He could see the quiet pain in Ravi's eyes, but also the strength that carried him still. I am sorry, Arjun said sincerely. Ravi shook his head. Don't be. Life took much from me, but it also taught me. It taught me that possessions can burn, but lessons stay. And the greatest lesson I learned is this: the real value of life is not in what you hold, but in what you share. Arjun sat in silence, absorbing the words. He realized that while Ravi had lost material things, he had gained wisdom. And while Arjun had gained material things, he had lost wisdom. That night, when Arjun returned to his mansion, he felt different. The tall ceilings, the shining floors, the silent rooms, all of them felt emptier than ever. Yet, in his heart, he carried the warmth of roasted peanuts shared on a street corner, and the lessons of value taught by a man who had nothing. And deep inside, he knew, his life was about to change. The days passed, and a new rhythm began. Every evening, when the city started to slow down, Arjun would drive to the same street corner. And every evening, Ravi would already be there, sitting calmly, as if waiting. It became a quiet habit, two men from opposite worlds meeting under a flickering streetlight. They spoke little at first, but with each day, their conversations grew deeper. Arjun found himself sharing worries he had never spoken aloud: the emptiness of his house, the coldness of business meetings, the weight of expectations. Ravi, in turn, shared stories of survival: how he found strength in small things, how he carried his pain with patience, how he learned to smile even when hungry. It was strange, yet comforting. Arjun, who could buy anything with money, discovered that what he longed for most was something money could never touch: understanding. One evening, as they sipped hot tea from clay cups, Arjun finally asked the question that had been sitting in his heart. How do you stay hopeful, Ravi? You lost your shop, your family, your home. You sleep on these streets. How do you not fall into despair? Ravi stirred the tea gently before answering. Because, Arjun, life is not about what we lose. It is about what we still carry inside. I may have lost my house, but I still carry memories of love. I may have lost comfort, but I still carry courage. These things, love, courage, hope, cannot be taken away unless we let them go ourselves. Arjun lowered his eyes. His mansion was full of objects, yet he did not feel he carried much within. Ravi continued, you see, people think money can fix every wound. But money cannot buy peace for a restless heart. It cannot buy the warmth of a real hug. It cannot buy a good night's sleep if the mind is full of worries. These things are earned in other ways. Arjun listened in silence. The truth of those words touched him more deeply than any speech he had ever heard at a business conference. They sat quietly for a while, watching people pass by. A little boy ran past, laughing as he chased a paper ball. His clothes were torn, but his joy was real. Ravi smiled, pointing. See that child? He has nothing, yet he laughs as if he owns the world. Happiness is not always about what you hold, it is about how you see. Arjun followed the boy with his eyes. His chest tightened. He realized that in his own childhood, he too had laughed freely, without needing riches. Somewhere along the way, he had traded that laughter for numbers on a screen. The thought troubled him. Then what is the purpose of all this wealth I have gathered? He asked softly. Ravi replied with calm wisdom. Wealth is not wrong. It can feed the hungry, heal the sick, build schools, bring shelter. But when wealth is only for yourself, it becomes a prison. Use it to touch lives, and it becomes freedom. Arjun sat back, his mind turning. No one had ever spoken to him like this. People usually praised his wealth, admired his power, or envied his success. But Ravi treated him like a man, not a billionaire. And in that simplicity, Arjun felt more human than he had in years. The tea vendor came by again, and Arjun paid for 2 cups. He noticed that Ravi always said thank you to the vendor, even when paying with coins that barely bought the drink. Arjun realized he rarely thanked the dozens of staff who worked for him daily. Small manners that Ravi carried naturally were things he had forgotten long ago. Later that night, as Arjun prepared to leave, he turned to Ravi. You have given me something I cannot explain. I used to think my problems were unsolvable, but when I sit here with you, they feel lighter. Ravi looked at him with kind eyes. That is because you share them. A burden cut in half becomes easier to carry. And remember, Arjun, not everything broken can be fixed. But even broken things can shine in their own way. Those words stayed with Arjun as he drove back to his mansion. His house was the same grand, polished, silent, but his heart felt different. He walked through the long halls and thought about Ravi's street corner, small and ordinary, yet full of meaning. For the first time in many years, Arjun stood before the mirror and did not see only his wealth or his power. He saw a man searching for something real, something that could not be bought or sold. That night, he did not sleep immediately. Instead, he opened a blank notebook and began to write, just as Ravi had shown him. His first line was shaky, but honest, "Today I found a friend." And as he closed the notebook, Arjun realized he had begun a new journey, not of wealth, but of value. Weeks passed, and what began as a chance meeting grew into a bond that neither man had expected. Every evening, under the same streetlight, Arjun and Ravi shared words, silence, and tea. The city rushed around them, but in that small corner, life seemed to slow down. Arjun changed in small but clear ways. His staff noticed he greeted them with genuine kindness. He began thanking the driver who opened his car door, the cook who prepared his meals, the guard who stood outside his gate. These small acts of respect were things he had forgotten long ago, but now they felt natural. And every night, he returned to Ravi. One evening, the sky glowed orange as the sun dipped low. Arjun came earlier than usual, carrying a small bag. Ravi looked at him curiously. "What is that?" Ravi asked. Arjun sat down beside him and opened the bag. Inside were 2 packets of simple food: rice, vegetables, and flat bread. "I thought tonight, instead of tea and peanuts, we could share dinner," he said with a smile. Ravi's eyes softened. He had not shared a proper meal with someone in years. They ate together, sitting on the pavement, as the evening breeze brushed past. For Arjun, the food tasted richer than any banquet he had attended. After the meal, silence returned, comfortable and calm. Then Arjun spoke. "Ravi, I want to ask you something important." Ravi looked at him, waiting. "I want to help you," Arjun said slowly. "Not out of pity, but out of respect. You gave me something no money could buy. You fixed something inside me that was broken. And I want to walk with you now. Let me give you a home, a new start." Ravi's hands stilled. His face showed no anger, but a deep thoughtfulness. "Arjun," he said gently, "I am grateful. But I do not want pity. I do not want to feel like a charity case." Arjun shook his head quickly. "No, Ravi. This is not pity. This is friendship. You stood with me when I felt weak, when I cried like a lost man. You gave me wisdom when I had none. If anyone gave charity, it was you to me." Ravi's eyes glistened with quiet emotion. He had lived so long being unseen, unwanted, forgotten. And now here was a man, not just any man but one of the richest in the city, speaking to him as an equal. Still, Ravi hesitated. "But what if I cannot fit in your world? My hands are rough, My clothes are torn. People will look at me as if I do not belong. Arjun's voice was firm yet kind. Then let them look. They do not know the truth. You belong wherever wisdom and kindness are needed, and that is everywhere. I cannot change what people think, but I can choose who walks beside me. And I choose you. The street was quiet. Ravi stared at Arjun, his heart heavy with gratitude. Slowly, he nodded. If this is truly friendship, then I will accept. Not for comfort, but to continue this journey together. Arjun smiled. A weight lifted from his chest. The following week, Ravi moved into a small house that Arjun arranged, not a palace, not a mansion, but a simple, clean home with a bed, a table, and a roof strong enough to keep away the rain. Ravi touched the walls with his rough hands and whispered, "It feels strange to belong somewhere again." Arjun visited often. They shared meals, laughter, and sometimes silence. Ravi still carried his old cloth bag, though he no longer needed it. Inside, he kept his gratitude notebook, now joined by another Arjun's own notebook, where he had begun writing daily. Arjun's first entries were simple: today I thanked someone. Today I shared food. Today I smiled without reason. Over time, his entries grew deeper. He began noticing things he had never seen before: the joy in a child's laugh, the peace of an early sunrise, the beauty of a shared silence. One evening, as they sat together in Ravi's small home, Arjun said, "You know, Ravi, I spent years trying to fix everything with money: my loneliness, my sadness, even my relationships. But I failed. Then you came, and you showed me that not everything is meant to be fixed by wealth." Ravi listened quietly, his eyes calm. Arjun continued, his voice soft, "You fixed something in me no doctor, no deal, no fortune could. You taught me that peace comes not from owning more, but from seeing more. Not from controlling life, but from accepting it. That was a lesson I could never buy." Ravi smiled gently. "And you, Arjun, gave me something too. You gave me back dignity. You saw me when others looked away. You treated me as a man, not as a beggar. That too is priceless." They sat in silence after that, the kind of silence filled with meaning. Two men, once strangers, now brothers of the soul, bound by lessons life had written into their paths. Outside, the night deepened, and the stars shone faintly through the city's haze. And so, a billionaire and a homeless man walked together into a new chapter, not because one had wealth and the other had nothing, but because both had found what they were truly searching for: connection, understanding, and the reminder that the truest fixes in life are not bought with money, but given from the heart.